Notice anything missing from that little solo I just played? Did you catch that there were no scales in it? Most guitarists spend countless hours learning, practicing scales, and then trying to fit them into their solos. And at first, it sounds impressive. But after a while, something happens. All those second intervals, one step to the next, running up and down the same patterns, the notes stop interacting with the chords underneath and they just become noise. If you've ever felt that your solos sound generic no matter how much you practice, that's why, and this lesson is the fix. We're going to learn how to build licks using wide intervals. Intervals that breathe, intervals where you can hear each note land against the underlying chord changes. And here's the thing, this video is going to meet you wherever you are skill-wise. If you're an advanced beginner, you're going to walk away with some ideas that you can use today. And if you're a more advanced player, stick around because the second half of this video is going to have some concepts that you'll really enjoy. Grab that guitar, let's dig in. So let's talk about why scales sound like scales. The major scale, the minor scale, the other modes, they're all built on second intervals. That means each note in succession to the next. And when you solo using these scales, you're essentially moving in small steps the whole time. And that's exactly what gives you that scaly sound. Now, the next interval up is a third. And you probably know what stacking thirds sounds like because that's how we build chords. Two thirds stacked on top of each other, and you've got a triad. Now, thirds are warmer and more musical than seconds. But we're going even wider than that today. We're going to start with fifth intervals. And here's the thing. Every guitarist already knows what fifth intervals sound like because the fifth interval is what makes up a power chord. So we're going to take something you already know and probably use every day, and we're going to use it to make your licks and solos sound completely different. So let's start with C and G. We're going to hang out in the key of C for most of this video. On any two adjacent strings, a fifth interval is simply a note and then another note on the next string 2 frets higher. The one exception to that is when you cross the G string to the B string. There, you're going to need to go up 3 frets instead of 2 because of the way the B string is tuned. Now, we can also harmonize right up the C major scale in fifths. And the shapes remain consistent on all the string sets with the exception of the G and B strings. Now, we're not going to go string by string through every combination. You can do that work on your own. But let's jump over to the E and B strings and do some things that sound really musical. Starting with the notes C and G at frets 1 and 3 of the B and E string, we can walk right up the scale. C and G, D and A, E and B, F and C, G and D, A and E, B and F. You notice the shape change there, and that's the only adjustment we're going to need before we're back to C and G an octave higher. Now, with those shapes and staying in the key of C over something like an A minor backing track, we can make up licks that are very reminiscent of lines Joe Satriani or John Petrucci might play. And all that is, we start with a note on the B string, play the fifth above it on the E string, go back to the note on the B string, and then slide down into the next note of the scale. And then we just keep it going. And here's a move that sounds really cool. Let's skip over some of the notes rather than moving stepwise. And that space between the intervals is really going to open up and the wide interval sound becomes even more pronounced. Take those licks, practice them over some backing tracks, see where the ideas take you. And now that you've got ideas for licks with fifth intervals, let's move on to sixths. Now this is an idea that you've definitely heard before because this song is on everybody's set list from hell. Now, all jokes aside, it's a beautiful melodic sound. Let's look at the reason for that. Starting with G and E, at the 5th fret of the D and B strings, we've got two notes that are a sixth interval apart, but they're both chord tones of C major. So right away, we're nailing the harmony over that chord. And if we walk those shapes up the D and B strings, we can harmonize the entire C major scale in sixth. Here's the chords of C major. And here it is in sixth. So how do we use these? Well, here's a move that I play all the time. Over a C major chord, we can play E and C as our sixth interval, skip over F and D and land on G and E. Here's another way I might use it. Over an A minor chord, I might start a lick with C and A, move up to E and C, and then switch to fifths on the B and E strings to climb up the fretboard all the way to the 17th position, where we've got A minor pentatonic. And we could finish off the lick with something bluesy. Now, here's the thing with licks like that. They're systematic, they're geometric, because we're moving set shapes through a key, but they still sing. And that's because of the wide intervals and the fact that we're hitting so many chord tones along the way. And now that we've talked about fifths and sixths, let's combine them into something really special. You're gonna love this idea. Go back to that C power chord with the root at fret 3 of the A string and G at fret 5 of the D string. That's the fifth interval. Now, remember the sixth interval we had with G and E at the 5th fret of the D and B strings? Combine those two shapes and listen to what happens. That's the sound of an open triad, also called a spread triad. The notes of a normal C triad are C, E, and G. But with the spread triad, we're going to take that E note, or the third, and we're going to move it over an octave above G, or the 5th. Here's your normal triad, spread triad. And having that really expressive third interval sitting on top like that, it gives spread triads a regal, majestic quality. A sound that was made famous for most guitarists by Eric Johnson with his song Cliffs of Dover. Let's play the voicings with the root on the A string through the key of C major. We've got C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and we'd be back to C major. Now, once we get comfortable with those ideas and those shapes, we can start adding little melodies on top of the spread triads. We could do something like slide into a standard triad inversion further up the neck. That sounds really elegant. Or we could move from a spread triad right into, say, the pentatonic scale that matches the chord. You get the idea. Now, here's a cool lick that I'm going to play over the backing track. We've got the chords A minor, E minor, and D minor. And over A minor, I'm going to play an open triad and then slide up into a sixth interval. Over E minor, I'm going to use both a G major and E minor open triad. That's one of my favorite tricks. It's using the relative major and minor arpeggios over the same chord. In this case, G major and E minor over E minor, but you could do the opposite of that. And then over D minor, I'm going to play a D minor open triad, slide up into a sixth, and then finish with some descending fifths. So we're really weaving all of these ideas together now. Check it out over the backing track. Now, let's take the open triad idea one step further, and this is for you more advanced players that you're looking for something a little bit different. We can also play spread seventh arpeggios. Staying in the key of C, start with C and E on the A string at frets 3 and 7. That's the root and the third. Now we're going to skip to the G string and play B and C at frets 4 and 5. That's the major seventh and the root again. Notice that we skip the fifth. Then jump to the high E string and play G and B at frets 3 and 7. So that's the fifth and the major seventh once more. Stay with me here because this is where things start to get really good. We could finish that by sliding into C. We could do something like slide into that C and then play back down to the octave on the G string. Or we could slide up into that C and then descend through the pentatonic scale, maybe in sextuplets like this. Or we could do something like ascend through the arpeggio and then move up the E and B strings using those fifth intervals. And of course, there's that favorite move of mine, playing both the major and relative minor arpeggios over the same chord. So over A minor, for instance, I'd play the A minor 7 spread arpeggio, and then C, and then descend through the pentatonic scale. It's a great sounding lick, and once again, every note, it's intentional. I know I've thrown a bunch of stuff at you, but I'm going to give you one last intervallic concept. And as much as the lick that we're going to learn, I want to talk to you about the process that I used to come up with it. I was messing around one day with some symmetrical arpeggio shapes, like this major 7th shape. This is C major 7. And I decided to challenge myself and see how far I could get moving the shape around the fretboard, and I came up with this. Now, I was just messing around as much as anything, and I was kind of letting my fingers wander around, and I course corrected if I hit some clunkers, which of course I did. When I took time to analyze what I came up with, I realized that I was just taking 3 note per string major scale patterns and dropping out the middle note. So the entire lick is moving in thirds with a couple of exceptions near the end where I play 4th intervals. And while I'll probably never play that entire passage in a solo, although I don't like to say never. There are definitely sections of it that I'd use, this part in particular. I guess the point I want to get across to you is this. If you want to sound different from every other player who's using the exact same scales and patterns, you got to mix things up, mess around, step outside your comfort zone. These intervallic ideas, they're different. And when people hear these things, their ears perk up and they pay attention. I know I do. And I can't say the same thing anymore about hearing people running scales or sweep picking the same arpeggios I've been hearing since the 1980s. Some food for thought. Hey, and if you like this stuff, here's another video I did. It's a deep dive into open triads and seventh arpeggios and connecting those to other fretboard concepts. Check that video out. Thanks for watching, and as always, work hard, play hard, have fun with that guitar. I'll see you next week.